In this video, I'll be talking about Tesla and Apple, two stocks that I have been kind of critical of and am a shareholder of both. In this video, I'm also going to be talking a little bit about what I chose to do with my positions on both of these, as I have been making some plays on both Tesla and Apple. And I want to talk a little bit about the news that we got here to start off. So today we had WWDC. It's Apple's big yearly kind of conference where historically this is where they roll out big products, big announcements, and things like this. Last year, we got a lot of hype around Apple AI or Apple Intelligence, their upcoming AI. And what we've seen here this year was not super impressive to shareholders. If we take a quick look at Apple's share price here, you can see that today there was not a substantial move one way or the other. And that recent momentum on the stock has been pretty negative. You can see despite the big bounce back that we've had across the stock market here recently from the April lows, while Apple has bounced back, it has not nearly bounced back as sharply or as impressively as some of the other major names. For example, some of its competitors on the ginormous stock stage, we have things like Meta, which is ripping to almost to fresh highs. You have Microsoft, which just put in a 52-week high. Take a look at this. Microsoft up big time here recently. Lots of momentum on this stock. Even Tesla bouncing back, at one point from the lows up to 69, 70%. From the lows, I mean, that's a huge rally. Of course, it's had its recent stuff, and we'll talk about Tesla in just a second. But the point is you have NVIDIA, you have all these stocks bouncing back so aggressively, and Apple has its own list of issues that I want to talk about and why today I am still feeling not super impressed with the shares that I own in my portfolio and what I did about it. So the shareholder or the big event, right? We were expecting or we were hoping to see some sort of big announcement that was going to kind of fuel the flame for Apple. This is an incredible company, but the expectations are very high with this stock as well, because of course it is such a big company. And if it's going to take on, bigger, better days ahead, it's got to start innovating to keep up with the latest round of AI stuff. So there was not a super impressive reaction to the event today. And with that on top of the whole tariff situation, the uncertainty that it creates for iPhones, I've talked about this in a recent video about, if Apple's were to be made in the United States, they would be $3,000 plus. And Trump seems very adamant about wanting that to actually be a reality, that they would be manufactured in the United States. So there's some pressures on the geopolitical, on the tariff front. There's also pressures because other competitors are kind of running ahead with the AI stuff. So I'm actually, as a shareholder of Apple, I've chosen to do something in particular, which is I've chosen to sell calls against my existing position. So just a bit of context here. In the sell-off that we saw in April, I did take Apple shares long with the idea that I thought it was overdone. And I still think that obviously was a good play in the sense that the stock did bounce back from its very oversold conditions. People were very scared about the tariffs, and I thought it was a bit of an overreaction. So I bought the stock because this is a premium name and the stock market has been for a very long time. However, I've recently decided to sell the 210 calls against my existing position in the stock. What that means is it gives me very little upside, but I shorted calls against my existing position. So I have 180 shares of Apple, and I sold a call against 100 shares of it. In return for doing that, I collected $300 something for writing that or selling that call, but that caps my upside. So for example, if Apple rips to 220 in the next, before expiration date on these calls that I sold, then I would only be able to capture that 210 call that I sold against my 100 shares. So I capped my upside on this, but part of the reason I did that is because I struggled to see right now a scenario in which Apple has tremendous short-term upside. I do think they're going to figure out the AI stuff, but they've been really slow to that game, and I don't see that changing in the short run. So I've decided to sell a covered call on my Apple shares, and if the shares of Apple do rally in the coming month, then I'll be taken out of the position, and I'll be happy to see it go. I'll just basically take profits on this trade that I ended up taking in the lows of April. So just wanted to update that. I'm not super confident in the stock, and I want to also show you part of the reason why on the financial data here. So I've got the PE ratio of Apple pulled up here. And when we take a look here at the PE ratio, you can see the PE ratio for Apple is in the 30s. And a 30 PE trailing 12-month basis, like looking at the price to earnings on a trailing basis, looking backwards, the stock is priced very expensive. Now, you might make the case that you think Apple Intelligence is going to figure it out and they're steamrolling ahead. They're going to make massive amounts of money. But there's problems that I see with this company, with this stock, like, for example, AI just running up ahead without them. That's a big issue because, again, in today's world, you have competitors like ChatGPT, Google, Gemini, right? All these other products that are going to steal share from the convenience and utility that is Apple if Apple doesn't get ahead of that curve. Now, I do still like the company. I think it's an amazing company. They make incredible products and they have a very sticky ecosystem that millions and millions and even billions of users around the world love. But the problem that I see with Apple is the lack of innovation and the high valuations. I like this company and I want to buy it at lower prices, but for me right now, I think the path of least resistance with Apple is for it to go sideways to even go lower. I don't see a huge amount of upside on this stock, and with a high valuation at 33, I would love to be able to buy it back later, and if it rallies on without me, I'd be thrilled to see it, and if it does happen, then I'll probably buy it back later, but my plan is to probably sell my shares of Apple and move on from it. The other thing I want to show you is if we take a look at the income statement for Apple, you can see that revenue growth for this company has just not been nearly as impressive as, for example, in NVIDIA. Just take a look, take a mental screenshot of what you're looking at there on Apple, and then let's look at NVIDIA as a contrasting example. Here's a company that is growing its revenues steadily, consistently, and aggressively, right? You compare that to what we just got done looking at with Apple, which is this back and forth kind of revenue. I just don't see where the growth engine for this company is. And it kind of leaves me with the concept that I think Apple is becoming more and more of a value company rather than a growth company. Of course, a growth company is one that grows its revenues tremendously and can demand that high valuation, right? Because it has massively growing revenues and income. But what I see as an issue, the reason I think Apple is a bit overvalued is because you have a very high, very expensive valuation with a company that's not growing its revenues and net income like a monster like NVIDIA is. So to me, I would actually rather take the profits that I have on Apple, which I plan to do if the stock rallies, I'll get called away from my shares, and I would take that capital and I'd put it into stocks that I like more. A similar thing can be said, but it is a bit different with the whole Elon Musk situation. So there was something that happened here recently. Musk's father says that Trump dispute triggered by intense stress has to end. Thought this was interesting. Elon Musk's dad is getting involved, and if you ever pull up a picture of him, he looks very similar to Elon Musk. I guess it's almost like they're related. But Musk's father says his son's dispute with Trump needs to stop. He says the row followed months of intense stress. And Musk says the father Musk says the dispute will end very soon. So I think that's part of the reason. Maybe there was some conversation between son and father. I'm not sure, but if we take a look at Tesla shares here, we did get a bounce today, and so I did actually take this as an opportunity, as I said I would in my recent video, to go ahead and make a decision on my Apple or on my Tesla shares. So if I go over to my TSLA within my brokerage account, what you'll see here is that I did actually end up selling or shorting the 375 July 11th calls. So what I did here is I sold two contracts where I have 400 shares total. So this would be 200 out of my 400 shares. I am selling calls against those 200 shares. So if this stock rips past that, if it goes to $450 a share at expiration date, I will still only make the profit of owning the shares, down here up to this point where I would cut off my loss. Cut off my max gain. Why would I do that? Well, because I think Tesla has a lot of challenges with it, and I honestly would like to get taken out of the trade for a profit on half of my position. Now, there's a couple reasons that I'm doing this. Maybe the easiest one for me to start with, the reason I'm selling essentially half of my shares if the stock rallies up past this point through the form of a covered call, part of the reason that I'm doing that is because this position has become very large in my portfolio. I'm sitting on some pretty good gains. I'm up 33% on this stock. And while it was already a big position to begin with when I took the trade, it has become significantly bigger with the recent rally in the stock price. So what I've done here is I've shorted calls, which I collected for doing this, $1,120 for writing that call. For shorting that call, I collected $1,100. Right? So upfront, I will, no matter what happens, I made $1,100 shorting these calls. If the stock rallies past that point, then I lose the shares and I keep the $1,125. If the stock goes sideways, goes nowhere, I still keep the $1,125 and I keep my shares. And if the stock goes down, I keep my shares, keep the $1,125, and move on. So, I that is the first reason that I shorted these calls. The second reason is it is hard for me to justify having such a large position in what I think has become an increasingly speculative stock. Now, I believe in the product. I love the product. I think it's an awesome, I love the vehicles. I love the self-driving aspect that I think is coming, the robo-taxis. I see the vision and I believe in the vision, and I think Elon Musk is a phenomenal CEO. But the headline risk of Elon Musk versus Trump, plus the kind of distractions that I think Elon Musk has on him right now, cause me to seriously lesser my like for this company. That is the truth. I've loved this company for a long time. I've been a Tesla shareholder since 2020. But my issue with this company right now is that Elon Musk seems to have bigger fish to fry right now. He seems to be very proactive in other areas. He wants to get more involved in politics. And, my issue with this is it all kind of started with the whole taking over X.com, taking over Twitter. He has this wonderful portfolio of powerful businesses, but he's stretching himself so thin doing all these. Meanwhile, he's also trying to be a part of the government, run the country and all that. To me, there's a lot of risk, whereas I have other companies that I could go buy and add to my portfolio that have CEOs that are fully at the driver's seat, fully dedicated to their sole mission of running their companies the best they possibly can. So to me, I think Elon Musk is brilliant. I think he's a very good CEO. I don't necessarily love everything that he's doing politically, but that's beside the point. When I'm talking about a stock that I want to buy, Tesla, I think with Elon Musk, full port, if he comes running back and he's full port, showing up to Tesla every day, then I'm, more inclined to want to stick with the stock. He's an incredible track record CEO. So I want to be a part of that story. But with him missing in action and with this becoming such a large size position in my portfolio, look, I'm still in the stock. I want it to rally like crazy. But I do have to kind of consider my risk in a name like this and ask myself, why do I want to hold on to a stock so aggressively and believe so strongly in something when the CEO is busy doing other things, right? That's a hard question that even if you're the most diehard, there's like a guy on CNBC, his name's Dan Ives. He's a huge Tesla shareholder, Tesla bull, says the same thing. We need Elon Musk at the driver's seat. This is a really important company, but it has enough challenges even with Elon Musk there. If he is busy in other places, then that's a challenge for me as a shareholder. And I think that, maybe this whole falling out with Donald Trump stuff, maybe it actually will lead him to come back to right the ship and focus up on Tesla. But even if that was the case, if Tesla shares rally dramatically, this is going to be a great opportunity for me to right-size my positioning. I think we're too big here with the amount of even the remaining 200 shares is a good size in my portfolio. And so my hope here, I guess hope is the wrong word, but my strategy here is that if the shares rally hard, I will take off half of my position for a profit. I'll collect that premium of $11.25. Why not? I'll take the premium there for shorting that call, selling that call to someone else, and I'll take a profit on the shares that I have and keep 200 shares. So I like the way that I've handled this. I'm feeling good about my positioning in Tesla. But what I'm not feeling so good about is the risk, right? The risk is very high with this stock. It is very volatile. Imagine if you had been, the poor soul that bought Tesla way over here, you saw your shares drop by 50%. And who's to say that that can't happen again if the fallout between Trump and Elon Musk continues? 50%, we could easily see the stock trade much lower. The final thing that I it's the challenge with Tesla for me is the valuation. And it's the challenge for everyone, right? Tesla, there's a lot of speculation here. This is why I call this a very speculative stock. Look at the PE ratio on this thing, and it's off the charts, right? You're talking about PE ratio, triple digit PE ratio, right? Why does that matter so much? Well, the challenge here when we look at a Tesla, right, is you have a stock in which, okay, revenue's growing, but it's not growing, like a rocket ship, and net income has been declining recently. So you have a stock here where you are betting the whole farm on robo-taxis, and the market share that could come out of that. Could it all pay out for shareholders? Absolutely, it could. But do I want to risk a sizable amount of my portfolio on that? No. Do I still want to be along for the quote-unquote ride, right? Get the pun intended, right? The ride share? Maybe, I do. I want to have some exposure to it, but I do not want to risk my account too heavily off of the hit or miss that is Tesla. Now, a while ago, I liked the stock a lot more when there was more of a persistent revenue growth going on in this stock for years, right? 2020, 2021, 2022. There was obviously some speculative years in there too, but I liked the vision. I liked Elon Musk, front and center, and just have not seen that same level of approach. I think also there is the political risk of people disliking Elon Musk, both on the left and the right now. I think that is a challenge, right, for the stock as people, the perception of Tesla could get tainted by a highly politicized CEO. So that's my thoughts on Apple and Tesla. I know I sound bearish. These were two stocks that I dislike. Trust me, I have many stocks that I really like right now. And maybe that's why I'm making this video, is to kind of document my thoughts as I consider moving out of some of these stocks that I have some challenges with holding in my portfolio, and look to reallocate that into stocks that I like much, much more. We'll, of course, talk about those in future videos. If you made it to the end of this video, could you just do me a favor? First of all, like the video down below, but also comment down below that you made it to the end, and I'll try and heart your comment just as a thank you. This is a new channel for me, and I love talking stocks, and I hope that you'll stick around and watch more of my videos if they're helpful to you. Have a great rest of your day.